And on today's show, how Charitable Lead Trust can direct your wealth to targeted beneficiaries. Part 5 of this week's series on estate planning update for 2015 with author and top producer Mike Kilbourn, CLU ChFC. Hi everyone, I'm Steve Savant, syndicated financial columnist and contributing author to Innsmark, Life Specs, and Backroom Technician. Let's get down to business. Well, welcome to day 5, Michael.
Thank you.
Michael, we're all over. All these ideas are just huge, and you really have put together an anthology in your book. We'll talk about that in the second segment. We're talking about Charitable Lead Trusts.
Yes.
Now, you just named 4 yesterday, the day before. We got 4 or 5 of these in our arsenal now. I mean, there's a lot of arrows in your quiver.
You bet. And so this is another split interest trust. So we have somebody getting the income interest and someone getting the principal part. So in the case of a charitable remainder trust, what we had in the previous session, the income came to the grantor during their lifetime, and at their death, it passed to charity. Mm-hmm. Now, during the grantor's lifetime, we're going to give the income to the charity, mm-hmm. and the principal is going to come back to the family or back to the individual. It actually can come back to but let's just stick with the family. So now our goal is to create a way to, pass assets without any gift or estate tax, because we want to use our exemptions in other places, let's say. So we're going to take a charitable lead trust and we're going to benefit a charity. And basically, the income's going to go out to the charity for a period of years. We have to pick a term, and we can actually design this so it comes up with a zero tax as to the corpus going to our family. In fact, the interesting part about this is you can actually design this to, when a client is giving to charity already, and I had a client, for example, who was giving about $50,000 a year to charity every year and had a plan to continue that indefinitely. And I said, well, wow, what a wonderful thing we can do now. Because all we got to do is work backwards, and we ended up figuring that he could give somewhere, and I don't remember the exact number, between $500,000 and $1 million into the trust that would eventually go to the family without any gift tax or estate tax, and he was going to continue just paying the $50,000 a year from the trust to the charity, just as he had done before. And what a wonderful way to work backwards to give to charity and do good for your family at the same time. And this is one of those living plans. So people talk about death planning, but the truth is proper estate planning is living planning, and this is part of it. It's a living thing that's happening here, and it's satisfying their charitable intent. And actually, this can be set up at death. So that, let's say, at death, there's going to be a tax bill. We don't know how big, but whatever it is, you can have your executor or trustee or somebody, maybe the attorney involved, go ahead and at that point set up a charitable lead trust, but it's testamentary, you're gone. But now we take the tax bill, and instead of paying that tax bill with these dollars, instead of having those funds be paid out to Uncle Sam, we're going to guide them to a charitable lead trust, and we're going to design it so at the end.
Wait a minute, after the fact?
After the fact, after the death, yes, you can do it. And in fact,
wow.
Now the only risk you have here is we don't know what the government's rate will be, because in order for this to work, you've got to exceed the government's rate in the trust. So it's called the 75-20 rate, which is 120% of the federal midterm rate. And today, that's the 75-20 rate is 2.2%. So all the trust has to do is exceed that, and there will be something benefiting the family members after charity's taken care of. And so if the rate's high, then maybe they'll skip this plan. But if it's low, the executor can do it. And if they do it at trust, let's take a look at the diagram. So grantor estate's $20 million. If we put $10 million, now he's dead, let's say, and we're going to make it so that no tax. It would have been a lot of money going to Uncle Sam, but instead we're going to put a charitable lead trust. We're going to put $10 million in there, and we're going to have it last for some 20 years. At the end of 20 years, so in the meantime, we got the income going there, but we have, at the end of 20 years, the children are going to end up with, or grandchildren, because 20 years might be, you die, your kids may be pretty old, you might end up going to the grandchildren. So we got to work to design this properly. And in fact, I think Jackie Onassis, they had this designed in her plan. No one ever knew, because she had a charitable remainder trust. They didn't know what was in there. That's good, because charitable remainder trust avoids all that
public scrutiny.
And public scrutiny. But in any event, she had a charitable lead trust built into her plan. And a testamentary charitable lead trust is a great way to zero out the tax if you haven't already done that while you're alive and figured out a way to get it done.
Well, I find that remarkable that you can do this after you've left, basically. Now, when you're looking, do you do much of this? I mean, is this a charitable lead trust?
I don't. This is a pretty rare thing, but we find if they're a significantly large estate, and also that the client has a very large charitable intent, they'll look at this after death thing, or during their life. They love the cleansing during life. If they're already given to charity, they love that thing where, well, I might as well, if I'm giving X to charity, I can cleanse so much from tax, gift and estate tax, by setting aside in a trust that will go to family members.
On this, can I also do the split interest here?
Well, this is a split interest.
This is a split.
Yeah, it's a split interest. So the split part of it goes to the charity, and part of it's going to family members.
Okay, so now this is just another of these tactics that you talk about, and I want to come back in the second break, and I want to give me a little idea of this. Now that we've figured this out, I want to know a little bit about donor advisor funds,
right,
and a little bit about maybe if we get to it, the family foundation.
Okay.
We'll be right back after the break. It's not how much money you make for your clients, it's how much money they get to keep, especially in retirement. But retirement income could cause Social Security benefits to be taxed. One tax advantage alternative is life insurance designed as a non-modified endowment contract that can generate tax-free income without taxing Social Security benefits. These contracts offer differing funding options depending upon your client's risk tolerance. For more information on how life insurance can be part of your retirement planning, just email me at steve@downtobusiness.tv. Brought to you by Ash Brokerage, the practice enhancement company. Well, welcome back to our second segment. Of course, I'm with Mike Kilbourn, CLU ChFC, top of the table producer, huge practice down in Naples, Florida. And he is a huge platform speaker as well as an author. And this book is golden, Disinherit the IRS. You can pick it up on disinherittheirs.com. You can pick it up at Amazon. And you go to Barnes & Noble. Next time I go there, and I'm there sometimes every other Thursday, I'll have to see how that book's doing on that shelf.
Don't die till you read this book.
Yeah, don't die. That's the disclaimer. Well, we're talking more now. Today, we're going to shift a little gears away from the trust and talk about donor advisor funds. Kind of introduce me into that concept.
Well, I often call donor advised funds a poor man's foundation because it's such a simple way to give as compared to forming a family private foundation. And actually, family private foundations have their place. In fact, when there's very large wealth and you want to pass it for many generations and you want the control to pass for many generations, you want to keep your name alive, probably the private family foundation is a better choice, but your goals and objectives can pass through to family members as they continue to give to charity through the donor advised fund. And it can last quite a few generations as well.
I'm surprised. Well, one thing I'm surprised about this is that you call it the poor man's, ability to pay this, because really you could be down at very low numbers like 5, 10 grand.
Sure.
And that works for them.
Well, I actually formed my own, I donated money to a donor advised fund, and it was Fidelity had one, and they have their own charity, believe it or not. It's the number 3 charity of all the charities because there's so much money flows into it. And basically what you do is you get the deduction up front when you do it, but you don't have to give the funds out this year. It can be spread over a number of years, but you get your deduction up front. That's pretty important to know. And what you essentially do is a donor advised fund is a fund within a community foundation, or it could be a private foundations that set up that are public charities, and public charities is the key. And so the funds then, once they're in the donor advised fund, yourself while you're alive, and maybe family members, and maybe you bring family members and have family meetings and you vote on how to give the money out to charity. What a wonderful planning tool for
now
family
you're actually
members.
Giving it to a third party, right? In a donor advised fund.
Yes.
People kind of think sometimes you lose control over this.
Well,
Talk about that issue.
Donor advised funds, you're actually advising the charity, in this case, let's say a community foundation, where to make the donation. Community foundations will follow your advice almost virtually all the time. Now, if a couple of generations go by and family members aren't paying attention to it anymore, they may take over and pass the funds where they see the best place for them. So some of the benefits of having lifetime charitable giving is that it carries on to your charitable intent for years to come, brings your children, maybe your grandchildren together at least once a year, maybe after you're gone. That carries on. What a wonderful way to keep your family together. Trustees' fees, in the case of a family foundation, which we'll come to shortly, are paid out. That's a wonderful thing to family members. That can happen. And the children can have influence in the community where the funds are given out. These are wonderful ways to help your family, and it keeps your name alive for generations. So when we give to a donor advised fund, there's a certain limit on how much you can deduct. And so if it's cash, you can deduct up to 50% of your adjusted gross income. If it's an appreciated asset, you can give up to 30% of your adjusted gross income.
Wow.
And that's a wonderful thing. Now that, if you can't use it all in 1 year, you can do it for 5 additional years, total 6 years, okay? So that takes care of the donor advised fund. It's so easy to establish. There's no cost to it. It's simple. And the donor advised fund, they'll send a check to the charity with your name on it. I had mine. It said the Kilbourn Family Foundation. They didn't know I didn't have one of those nice private foundations. They just saw it, Kilbourn Family Foundation, and the amount of the money.
Now, this works because if a person, even if they have a small wallet but a big heart,
yes,
they're regular givers.
Yes.
I mean, there's a lot, most of middle America fits this bill, and they could do this.
Right, so you have a lot of income in this 1 year. This is a good year to make a donation to offset it, and so, but give out the money over future years. Then maybe you give every year, but you want to make the big deduction this year.
Mike, let's talk about family foundations. Now, I know it's a little different. Now we're going upstairs, a little more wealth. Right. This takes a little time. There's a little bit of bureaucracy, and there's a little bit of money, and we got to get this applied for. You actually have to do an application. Yes.
Well, first of all, yes, they do. You do. In fact, it takes 6 to 24 months for that to get approval by the IRS. You have to give away, once you get established, 5% a year. There's no delaying it like it is with the donor advised fund. You have to give away at least 5%. And there's excise taxes that between 1% and 2% that you get charged by the government for having this. The deduction's limited. So if you give cash, it's no longer 50% of adjusted gross income. You can only deduct up to 30% of your adjusted gross income for cash, and only 20% of your adjusted gross income if you give an appreciated asset. And so that's important to know. And it's subject to rules that are strictly regulated activities among them. And but the family members controls, but they are regulated by rules. They control, they do the administration, and they can be paid a fee. So
they could actually employ family members.
Yes.
Now, remember, I heard that word private family foundation, but there's nothing private about this.
No, it's actually...
It's very public domain.
Public domain, unfortunately. Well, I had a good example. I had a client who said he was very unhappy with how his daughter was leading her life. He said, I'm not leaving her anything. And I remember he had a $12 million estate, and I thought, what? He said, no, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to set up a private family foundation, and I'm going to make her the trustee of it. Oh, what a wonderful thing. He's going to teach her. But she's going to be able to have an income. You know, maybe it's $50,000 a year. I don't know what it would be, some reasonable percentage. But she would have an income as a result of managing the money and give it out to charities. And he said that's going to train her in ways I want her to learn. And he said, I think that's going to satisfy my intent for her and satisfy his charitable intent.
Well, that's all the time we have for today. Remember, before moving forward with any of the ideas on our show, always consult your tax advisor, legal counsel, or your broker-dealer compliance officer. Missed an episode? Just go out to our video archives. And remember, you could be wiser as an educated advisor. I'm Steve Savant. We'll see you next week.